Hi, everyone. My name is Patrick Rose. I am the sales manager at Dakota Lithium. I was invited here by Jeff to kind of talk about lithium batteries and answer any questions that you might have. So I do have the presentation, but please feel free to interrupt and ask questions because I feel like that's the best way to kind of talk about lithium batteries. I always find someone has a question that sparks up a different one as well. So please feel free to interrupt. Um, Anyone here have lithium batteries already? A decent amount. Perfect. Perfect. So we'll just kind of go through and see what we can do and answer any questions. Perfect. So just some background on the company. We were started back in 2008 under the name Clean Republic. We started as an e-bike conversion kit company, so just a front wheel with a battery and a throttle. Um, the founders kind of got tired of ordering batteries from China, and then they just started looking into creating their own batteries. It started with really small 12 volt, 7 amp hours and 10 amp hour batteries that you'll find in like fish finders and like 12 amp hour SLA replacement batteries. And so that's how it started with Dakota Lithium off of Clean Republic. And then we had Hilltopper bikes for the e-bike side of it. One day, ice fisherman picked up our battery and kind of reviewed it on YouTube, and it kind of took off in the marine market. And so now that is our strongest market. We are in different fields, though, golf carts, RVs, solar, all sorts of different things. We try to have a solution for every single battery, and I'll kind of show different examples throughout the presentation.
Yes, can you turn the video on? That way we'll get you on video.
Oh, yeah. I'll sit down then too.
Yeah.
Perfect. All good?
Yeah.
Perfect. So one of our biggest things is we want to like have clean renewable energy. That's a big part of lithium batteries, kind of get rid of SLA and AGM batteries if we possibly can. It's not always the case, and that's something we will talk about. That was one of the questions that was sent over before. So one of our things that we kind of started in the battery realm is more of a lifestyle brand. So we do hire a lot of ambassadors and people that spend a lot of time outdoors to kind of promote our brand. And we were kind of the leaders in that space. You see a lot of different companies going in that direction. So that is one of our biggest things.
Jeff is a brand ambassador.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Right here, man. That's me.
Yep.
I'll hook you guys up with some members who help you guys do some testing.
Mm-hmm.
I've been Antiquarius, I think is where they did it.
Yep. Yep. And we're always looking for other people as well, especially local. That's very helpful. That can be a little tricky in Washington sometimes. So whenever an opportunity comes up, that's what we're looking for.
Why is Washington tricky?
A big part of our market is like bass boats and fishing boats, being limited with the weather, that could be a little bit tricky. And so we, especially for marine, we'll take them as much as we can in Washington.
Right.
Hmm.
So we don't have to have bass boats.
No, 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 no. At this point, too, I think we're looking for anything other than bass boats. So this with Dakota Lithium, we've been in business for a very long time compared to other lithium companies. There are other companies that have been around for similar amount of time, but we really tried to be a leader in the space by pushing the boundaries of our batteries and kind of having a really small footprint with capacity. We've seen a lot of companies kind of chase after us in that way. So we've tried to be a leader in the space and try to continue to innovate as much as possible. We've had really good relationships with the people that manufacture for us and everything. So we just try to stay on top of it as much as possible.
Your manufacturer's in China.
Yep.
Everybody knows.
Yep. That's like one of the biggest things, is we would love to be able to manufacture in the US. That is an end goal for Dakota Lithium. We actually have one of the founders who is in North Dakota, who he's doing some research to kind of help bring cell technology over here at a affordable cost rather than just being super expensive, you know.
Did the whole tariff thing screw up your business?
Yep. So last year was really rough, with all the tariffs, and thankfully now they're down. but that is something we are always prepared for, is just like being aware of where the tariffs might end up. So
Yeah, why that cost there, because you didn't jack your prices up that much.
we didn't, yeah, we actually did not go that high up in price, which was really great. It still kind of hurt us with some of the cheaper brands. You know, there's a lot of Amazon brands you can purchase from, that kind of stuff. So even us increasing our prices, that it was a harder sell for us, you know. Um, so that kind of goes in like, and that's what I'll talk about it. It's just kind of how our support and everything. So that's what we're really leaning on, especially during the tariff situation.
Sure.
Mhm.
How about the chemicals? Are you gonna talk about that maybe?
Oh yeah, just like the different kind of chemistries and everything. Like, yeah. So we only work with lithium iron phosphate right now. We do have one LTO battery, lithium titanate oxide, I think is what it stands for. But that's like a starter battery for cars specifically. It can handle colder weather better, higher discharge rates, like even better than what our dual purpose batteries can handle. We've thought about going into sodium. It is at that cheaper cost. It just doesn't have the life expectancy as Life PO4. So it's something we were a little bit against. And then,
Popular thing.
yep. So there was one other company that had a sodium battery, and I think they took it off for uh like fishing, like the bass industry, like in general. I think they ended up dropping that battery. But it is something we're exploring. I think right now we're looking more towards solid state. So there is a company that we've talked to a decent amount about going towards that technology.
The solid state is kind of the future.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And what is the difference between LiPo and solid state?
Yep. Solid state. Solid state cells are kind of like prismatic cells, so like a hard drive rather than cylindrical cells. So a bunch of AA batteries stacked on top of each other. It would just be one hard drive size cell stacked on each other. And then you could draw down a lot further than you can with Life PO4. It could charge faster, has better temperature control as well. That
Made
kind
out
of
of different stuff.
But it's the same chemistry, I thought.
Yeah, it's like similar chemistry.
Out with a shovel and taking it.
No, it's safer,
It's
It's much
safer.
safer. You can shoot a bolt.
Hmm.
plus a lot lighter.
Even lighter.
Mhm.
Lighter.
Yeah.
So it's safer and won't run away on
And that a lot of the runaway stuff too, because Life PO4 is extremely safe. It depends on the BMS. And that's like kind of what the biggest difference is with some of the different Life PO4 companies right now, is kind of tuning the BMS to kind of cut things off at a certain point.
And BMS is,
Battery management system, the little chip within the in the battery to kind of control discharge rates, charge rates, temperature rates, all that kind of stuff. I always explain it. It's that little safety precaution in the battery to protect your application, yourself, and the battery.
And my understanding is in the early days, those were always external,
Mhm.
rather inside the case.
Yep. So there's companies like Victron who like they're a fantastic company. We're actually Victron dealers for all their components. We love Victron. With their batteries, you have to have an external BMS. That's something you have to program yourself. An internal BMS kind of makes it easy on you where you don't have to stress about those kind of things.
About like the new starter lithium I bought where it keeps it at a certain temperature. And then I just have an app on my phone and it tells me.
Mm-hmm.
So that has that little system.
Yeah.
Talking about built-in freeze protection, because lithium is supposed to freeze, right?
Say if it got super, super cold, which it won't,
Yeah.
in my boat.
So,
Yeah, but like in a camper van in North Dakota, it might come in handy.
Oh yeah. And that's where like a lot of that stuff comes in handy. So with our batteries in particular, separate from the BMS, we have heaters that are installed on the batteries. Because like where the big problem comes with cells and charging in cold weather is but that let me run that back. The biggest damage to cells is charging in colder weather. So below 32 degrees Fahrenheit, the heaters will activate when the charger is connected and the BMS senses that, and that will warm the cells up to be able to allow charging in colder temperatures. Discharging in colder temperatures is never really an issue, especially because those cells are heating up while discharging.
So the heaters are not drawing power from the battery, it's drawing power from the charger.
Correct. Yep. It's a very minimal draw from the charger too.
So it's not an issue of the battery being below 32. If it's discharging or if it's just idle, it's just only an issue when it's being charged.
Yep. And a lot of the damage that you'll see is if like long-term use. And what that could lead to is a couple of extra amp hours off of the life expectancy of the battery, less cycles, that kind of stuff.
Not a cast.
No, yeah, it's not a super big failure. So it's like it depends on the battery. Some of them are a little bit over than what they're rated for. So it's something you might not even notice. And that is just repeated use over years.
Yeah. So then if I have my battery in my boat and, the solar panels are disconnected, they're charging on it. If I leave it there over the winter and it's below 32 for a month or whatever, I don't really have to.
Yeah. I always tell people there's nothing really to stress about with that kind of stuff. Yep.
Your van power just tries to take and use in the camper van for his e-bike and his adventures in the winter. I'm like, can't take it. That one doesn't have a little heater.
It'll damage it.
So let our guest proceed a little bit.
Yeah.
One more slide.
Past the title page?
I know. It makes it a lot easier. So why Dakota Lithium? We have the 11-year warranty. It's not prorated. We kind of started the 11-year warranty that you see with other brands. We started this back in, I think, right when I started in 2020. And it was prorated for a short period of time. We saw people copying that and we switched over because we were that confident within our products. Keep in mind, lithium batteries have about a 10-year life expectancy. And that's just with making sure you're charging time like in the correct way, not overcharging, that kind of stuff. With Dakota Lithium, we have a pretty decent sized engineering team. That's kind of why this company was started, is just engineers really fascinated with batteries in general. Like I said, one of our founders is looking into bringing cell technology over here. So we have really good communication with our manufacturers because of this reason. We're not picking batteries off a shelf. We're kind of designing batteries how we would want to be able to use them. With the ISO stuff and quality control and UL listed, that just is an extra safety thing. The batteries themselves are not UL listed, but the cells are, which is just like extra safety on top of it. Mhm.
The cells are coming from China.
Yeah, so those are UL listed. Like we paid for the certification for them to be tested and everything.
So that's your supplier, it's UL listed.
Yep. And so for the whole, if we wanted to do a whole battery, which it is possible, it's something we've explored because this is something we're going to probably have to do for the marine market eventually for insurance. And so this is something we're talking about. Once you UL certify a battery, it can't make any changes. If you make a slight change inside of the battery, the physical size or anything, you have to go through the certification again. So this is something we've been discussing to kind of prepare for insurance reasons. The battery management system. So all of our batteries, as I mentioned, have this BMS built in, even down to the little 12-volt 7-amp-hour batteries that people use for like smoke detectors or anything, deer feeders, that kind of stuff. So we take the safety of the batteries very seriously. For the energy density, I'll show this battery. We're one of the only companies to we have 320 amp hours in a group 31 case. And that battery's been out for a couple years now. I just went to a trade show a couple weeks ago, just looked around at the competition and no one has achieved that yet. And so that kind of just shows with our engineering team and everything where we're at within the lithium realm.
But how do you get greater density for
Yeah,
size?
yeah.
How
Cool.
do you achieve it?
What batteries?
So yeah, so it just depends. We kind of explore the best cell route to go. So we'll either go with the cylindrical cells, um, or we'll go with prismatic, which is very similar to the solid state design of being really small. And then we just will go through everything that if we have a case size, we try to pack as much as we possibly can in a safe way in that case.
So it's a optimization.
Mhm.
approach.
Yep. And it kind of helps us, where we spend a little extra cost on like mold fees to kind of get that custom size in a traditional case, that kind of stuff, instead of going and picking that off a shelf. So some of our competitors will have 300 amp hours and a 4D or an 8D size, which is still a great size to have. It's still very lightweight, but we just thought going this route would be a nice way for a nice, easy replacement for people.
Is that like a
It
standard?
seems extraordinary.
Yeah.
I'm very impressed. But you did that in the group 31.
Mhm.
So what about the thermal side of that? Because what's your charge rate and discharge rate for that battery?
For that battery, I can go to, I can go to that one right now. So that is one of our dual purpose batteries. So does it not have? Oh, yeah, 200 amps max, continuous, 300 amps, 10 seconds per max. So that's we have our dual purpose batteries, which is our DL plus line, and then we have our deep cycle line. This falls under the dual purpose line. The BMS is tweaked a little bit in a safe way to handle larger discharge and charge rates.
Starting.
Mm-hmm.
So what is a big windlass draw? You didn't know? Just out of curiosity.
So
How many amps?
yeah, it varies.
So the fuses on them are like 120, right? 120 amp. Fuse on them.
They're the heavy cables.
Mm-hmm.
Way under load. I think, yes, okay. More like 60 or 80 or 100. It's good. Yeah.
Amps, they're drawing
Yeah.
100 amps.
Yeah. And
So this thing can discharge on 200 amps, so you'd be pretty safe.
well, actually, I think it may be 200.
Yeah. That's kind of well.
Very picking up how big the windlass is.
Yeah, right.
And they're not light loads.
Yeah.
And all these batteries can be wired in parallel. So,
Uh,
when you're wiring in parallel, you're increasing the amp hours, you're increasing the 200 amps max to 400 amps max as well, which I've set up a couple of these for windlass in the past. It's like for larger systems as well. Mhm. Yep, I sell a lot of these for AC units, like kind of set up for solar, and most of the time it's basing the system off an AC unit, trying to figure that out.
Yeah.
And then, so I kind of touched on it a little bit for the dual purpose side of it, and I'll show a couple of different examples of our lineup. That was one of our main focuses a couple of years ago. Once again, to kind of get back into or to get into the mass market for starting batteries. There was a company that said they bought a lithium company, they set the restrictions. So our focus was to kind of meet those and kind of take over that market. And so one of the batteries I'm going to show kind of falls in that. So we try to have a starting battery for every solution. Unfortunately, that's not the case. That's one thing I'll cover in the questions that were sent over. We do recommend an AGM battery, but we're always happy to kind of walk you guys through that and get that figured out.
So my guess is that in the dual purpose batteries, it's the difference is not in the cells, it's in the BMS.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
So you have the same cells pumping out the energy, you're just managing.
Yep.
the different-
Yep. What the biggest difference probably cell wise all of our dual purpose batteries are using prismatic cells, and then our deep cycle batteries, like our 12-volt 100, which is just a standard deep cycle, still using the cylindrical cell technology.
Prismatic get you.
The prismatic, we've kind of discovered it just like kind of helps with the larger amp draws and like the faster recharges.
Just the
And-
physical form
Yeah,
works better. for that.
yeah, and like it's just more compact, so you can get that battery like the
Oh,
320.
there's no interstitial kind of gap.
No. Yep. It's all just stacked on top of each other.
When you have a single purpose battery, you have to tell the battery what purpose you're using it for? Like a shit?
No, not necessarily. Luckily the BMS will handle that because of the limitations. So say you have a good example is like someone takes our deep cycle battery, connects it to an outboard, tries to start, the BMS will trip. Dual purpose, as long as it's in that parameters, it will start out fine. Mhm.
So that one here is a very large battery, so it's a 320 amp
Mhm.
battery. So I think I saw you had it's a 300 amp AMS, something like that, was it?
Yeah, so 300 amps for 10 seconds. You have
So there's kind of a common pattern, which is to have the same C rating as the battery.
Mhm.
So a 300 amp hour battery can do 300 amp discharge. So do you have a 100 amp hour starting battery that is?
25.
Yep, so we have a 135. And so this is in a group 24.
No, 1,000 amp.
And
Second pass.
yeah,
That's the one
You need the 1,000 amps for your 6 horsepower.
so
It's a 9.8 and I just.
Oh, sorry.
Added something.
we do have something smaller. Like so this is our DL plus 60 amp hour. And so for smaller motors, you can't go with like this smaller one.
It's not Dakota, but it's 105 amp hour starter battery. Lithium.
Mhm.
Started that?
Yeah, and it's 100 amp hour.
Made by.
I have a 100 for my house and 100 that I was this year going to just like, if I need to switch over to
Yeah.
this,
Okay.
to have an extra 100 if I burn through my first one.
Huh?
Cause I found out last year that I could just like pull start that thing, like it's
Yeah.
really, if I burn through both, but yeah, it starts it every time.
Yeah.
It seems like lithium can discharge. It has such capacity for high discharge that just a natural starter.
Yep. What were you gonna ask a question?
So I think one of the problems with the discussion around starting batteries is that the requirement ranges from starting a truck
Hmm.
and a large diesel motor down to a 7 horsepower outboard. And the kind of phrase, oh, is this good for starting? Gets
It's very
thrown out
broad.
as if somehow those requirements are the same, and they're massively different.
Mhm.
From hundreds and hundreds of amps, like 800 or 900 amps current required at the moment you start a truck or engine or a diesel motor in a motor, down to trivial amounts to start a little outboard. I mean, can I just I have an 18 amp hour lithium battery bought 12 years ago, attached to a 9.8 horsepower Tohatsu. When I say attached, I mean it's rusted on. Rusted on about 8 or 9 years ago.
Let's talk about a lot.
Welded. Yeah, welded. Yeah, and it has started that motor first time every year for the last 11 years. That's an 18 amp hour battery. I have no idea what the current draw. It wasn't bought as a starting battery. It was just a little lithium battery, and it's done absolutely brilliantly. So
I think that the problem that we have is the Tohatsu manual wants you to have whatever,
a 30 amp hour
a fairly large battery.
lead acid.
Yeah,
I
I
think
don't
there's
think it's
another reason
bullshit.
for that, but yeah.
What do you think the reason is?
Well, I think it's to do with the charge current that is coming out of the engine when it runs.
Oh,
Yeah.
because
Isn't that
we
with
can
the
get that.
CCA ratings? The CCA rating? Isn't that how you determine that? Cold crank amps? You size that. I mean, 1,000 is probably more than we need. But I mean, so is.
But my 80 amp hour battery doesn't even have a secret.
Yeah, it doesn't have a
It's gonna
rate.
be 20 amps or something,
Yeah.
maybe for a moment.
Yeah,
I'm guessing.
yes. Well, then the difference between his battery and the battery that is designed for that is that, I assume, is that it's been designed for a certain discharge.
You'll be selling this to people who've got 250, 350, 600 horsepower.
Yeah.
Tell me what size engine is this good for?
So
Like a Yamaha outboard or something?
so one of the issues we have with this battery in particular, the 135, especially for Yamahas, is with the smaller motors, it does not work because they have stators. But the larger, because they have stators instead of alternators. And so with this, yeah, so that like it will spike up over 15 volts and it will shut off during runtime.
That's the charge side.
Yep. And that's like the biggest issue why these won't go on like smaller Yamahas. I had a Suzuki today that someone that was asking me questions about. It spiked up at 15.2 volts, so I'm not able to sell that battery to them just for safety
So like
reasons.
a Yamaha 99
Mhm.
would do that.
This might be.
Yeah.
It's been never a problem.
So do you have a small battery that's suitable for like a, 10 horse outboard?
It just depends. And that's one thing. I'm always happy to look up the model of people's outboards and figure it out. If there's a stator or if it's an alternator, make sure it does not spike the voltage. That's something I have to do for every single customer right now. And that's like what you mentioned, when someone says a starter battery, you got really small motors all the way up to diesel motors. that I could deal with.
So there's a category of stator motors,
Mhm.
but that's in the very low end.
Mhm.
Very quickly, 20 horsepower and up,
Yeah.
the alternators.
Yeah. So it varies. Yeah.
But you answer my question. What size engine? What the largest engine typically? This would be capable of starting.
I'd have to think. I would have to go back and look for like the Yamahas. Like right now, off the top of my head, just because I sell them so much, a Mercury 250, which is like,
Yeah.
it's like,
So it's the engine.
Mhm.
I mean, which is fantastic.
Yeah.
Is that a
That's great.
four-cylinder motor?
yeah, it's a 4-cylinder motor. Yep.
It'll fit on your boat.
You get turbine.
Yeah.
Well, isn't one of the issues that the outboards are made to charge lead acid?
So a lot of the alternators are set to, they have a voltage range, right?
Right.
So lithium battery, as long as it's getting 13.6 to 14, like as long as it's exceeding 15 volts for especially our line, there's no issue. If you're charging a little bit under, it's still getting a charge. It's just not getting a full charge. Especially an alternator, most of the time they're spiking up to 14.2. That's where they normally rest, unless it's a stator, then it's getting to up to 16 volts. SLN AGM just doesn't care. It will just get a continuous charge. It doesn't have technology in it to stop it from operating.
So chemistry allows that.
So if it gets more than 15 volts, it trips, the BMS trips. There's an automatic reset then. So you're out there, you're running full throttle, BMS trips. You're out there for another 10 hours running at 70 speed.
Yeah, and so that's where we see a lot of it. So it's a certain RPM, right? That people will achieve that they're getting above 15. So you just have to go really slow.
But
It's
my question is, what happens when you don't?
it's as easy as some people. Oh, I'm not gonna say it's easy. Some people are able to just go right back in. The BMS will trip, like be able to restart the motor, no problem. Some people they have to disconnect. One thing that we're looking into, adding a reset button onto the battery. Our LTO battery has that now.
So, I mean, I'm trying to figure out how I've been doing this then, because, I run wide open, I might run wide open for 10 hours sometimes, right?
Mhm.
Whatever. And so, it's like, what, 3 hours a tank, 4 tanks? So, it's a thing on that boat. And so I've never noticed any difference in the BM, like, what happens when the BMS trips?
It'll just shut off. It's
Yeah,
like,
Can you still get power from the, yeah, you're just not getting charged, right?
yeah.
So the battery's still running on.
Oh no, the battery will completely turn off everything.
Oh,
So
okay.
yeah, and so your voltage is probably in the perfect area that you need.
Yeah, right. I know you guys ran it.
It's done that. You've got voltage applied over the battery.
Yeah.
That's all still available.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Okay,
This is just like from what I've ran into, because it's when we first started coming out with these, we didn't consider stators. People were going full speed, it would spike up and the voltage would kick back for some reason, and it just shut the battery off at a faster speed. And it would, the boat would stop.
You dial for one.
Let's keep going. These guys are
Oh.
gonna these guys are not gonna quit.
That's all good. That's all good. Perfect. I kind of talked about it, our 11-year warranty. One thing that we are very prideful of is our support team. So we are local here in Seattle. So if there were ever any issues, wanted a battery looked at, we are just down on Lucille here in Seattle. We have a really great support team there. And then just throughout the country, we have different people, to answer the calls. That's probably one of our biggest parts of the company, which is really great.
That's where this beer came.
Yep. Over on Lucille.
Is the 11-year warranty a joke? Like, the whole thing goes to 11, like it lasts for 10 years and goes to 7.
No, no,
I
no.
bet it was.
It was, from what I was told, it was just, we were very confident and we're going to do it. And now we've had batteries out there for that amount of time, which is great. And so just about the products, we've kind of jumped around to them anyways. So I figure some of these I might jump around to with some of the questions that were asked. Definitely will probably go to this one. Just talk about the deep cycles. So I was sent over questions before, and I just want to get through these as well. We kind of touched on the differences between deep cycle and dual purpose. This is something that's just deep cycle only. It's about the same footprint as our 135. But as you could see, it still has a really large discharge rate. But with recharge, it's a little bit slower. You can only charge at 50 amps. That's like what the recommended is. So a lot of people will just use this for an electronics battery, use a starting like one of our dual purposes, and then if they don't want to purchase another dual purpose to connect, they'll just go with a smaller 100. Then we do have like some smaller ones as well. We have 54 amp hour, and then a 46 amp hour, which is about the group U1 size, which is pretty small. So, mhm.
How do they deal with slow charging?
Slow charging, it's just, it doesn't really make a difference at times. It just depends. So we recommend charging at a 1C rate, which would be 10 amps for this one. But the faster charging will kind of deplete the battery's overall life. With these standard deep cycles, the dual purpose, you can charge a way faster rate.
Yeah, I run 2 Yamaha 99s. The new ones have 6 amp charge, just generators, stators like this. So you don't get much juice out of them. The old ones had 10, so I was carrying 20 amps of charging power. Now I'm carrying 12. Charging power.
So if you go above, 0.1C, you're kind of getting around the floating battery.
Yeah, more kind of similar to like the charging in colder weather situation. So just might deplete the cells a little bit, might not achieve full capacity by the end of the 10 years, probably closer to like the 80%. So it won't do anything, like do any damage to the battery physically or anything. It's just life expectancy. Yep. Yeah. It's like drinking. That's a good way to put it. The next question was, do we even need dual purpose batteries for starting little motors? It's something I recommend. You can always talk to a salesperson, figure out if like say the 12 volt 100 falls in that range. I recommend going with a dual purpose just because that is what the battery was designed to do. I've had people use a 100 amp hour for starting smaller engines. Uh, it's just ever since I started working for this company, I was always told no. And so I just followed the rules that were provided to me. Uh, Unfortunately, I kind of talked on it a little bit. Uh, there's not always a lithium battery for every motor. There's nothing wrong with going with a smaller AGM or SLA battery, and then the rest of the batteries can be lithium. There are ways to charge a lithium bank from an AGM battery using something like a Victron Orion, which is a DC to DC charger. And so that's not charging off the alternator, it's charging off your starting battery, and then you can charge your starting battery with the lithium house bank as well. So you could always ask for a salesperson. Also, Jeff could give out my email, phone number, and stuff like that. And I'm always happy to figure out the right setup for someone. I know people really want lithium batteries for a full setup. It's just more for safety at the end of the day.
I ended up doing I wrote those questions, I ended up doing a tiny little motorcycle, AGM to start the motor. And that thing works great.
Yep.
You know, except they're a pain, they like drop, they go dead fast. They're, you know, like, it's not bad for me if I buy one every year. I mean, I don't know, I mean, like when I was riding motorcycles, it's like, you know, riding another cycle, like that in the winter. And you get, you know, just won't hold a charge. You know, like
Even
little
AGM?
teeny dudes, yeah, little teeny GM,
Yeah.
yeah, it's just their pain. In my experience, I don't know what everybody
Yeah.
is. You got
They're,
people.
they're a pain because
They go dead. My motorcycle.
They don't last on the wall.
So maybe that's part of the problem, but.
They last a year.
Those, yeah, they last 2 years, this, you know, little motorcycle batteries, it seems like to me, they, like,
people are putting ones that are
So-
a little bigger than that. but-
and the issue is probably mine, so, you know, you forget to put the trickle charger on it for like 4 months or whatever, you know. Yeah, it's-
Yeah, you gotta take care of
Right.
Okay, dumb question.
That's, and it's.
It was probably a dumb question.
But,
So-
yeah.
If I have a lead starting battery
Yeah.
and, can I have lithium house batteries?
Mhm.
Batteries? Now, the way I deal with charging them is I start it on the starting battery and then switch the switch to both, so the engines charge all the batteries at once.
2 different chemistries.
Yeah, that's the question.
So the DC to DC, like a Victron Orion, that solves that problem.
I'm trying to figure out if it's a problem.
Yep, it's for with the DC to DC, that solves it, no problem. And
What's the problem?
so if you were charging like just one of these deep cycles off of your alternator, the voltage spike would trip the BMS, and so it would just stop it from charging completely.
Doesn't that kill your output?
That could there.
I think
Yeah.
it's a real problem.
So that was what part of the question. Someone did have a battery and they think that the voltage spike from the charging of the deep cycle ran into the alternator and fried it. I haven't had that happen, but that is a worry with.
Yeah, it's fairly common. I belong to mostly a mono sale club, and now that everybody's gone to lithium, and now there's these BMSs that just turn off the. It's like a water hammer. You have all this energy that now has no place to go
Mhm.
except back into your alternator and fry your dial.
Mhm.
So is is the stator work had the same problem, or it's totally different? I don't,
It really matters whether it's a stator or an alternator, but if the BMS shuts down, we've got this energy,
Yeah,
there's nowhere to go, and you get a it's a swap voltage, it could be like 100 volts for
yeah,
a few milliseconds.
Yeah.
That's long enough to fry the diodes in the alternator, or maybe even your
there are
electronic.
diodes in a stator. So,
Well, I don't know if there are any diodes.
I don't know what
They
it
might-
is. It sounds like a
it's
flower
very
pot.
it's a very crude,
It's a sting man.
charge.
Dynamo.
Um,
A stator is a dynamo.
Basically, isn't it the magnetic?
Oh, it has a permanent magnet.
We're getting a little.
That's the word.
Yeah,
That's what this presentation is all about.
Yeah, that yeah, it's perfect. The next question was kind of just what we were talking about, just BMS kind of tripping, what happens with like an alternator and everything. So that covers that. So on our construction quality, I've talked about it a little bit. It's something we take a lot of pride in. Um, we've just have always wanted to be kind of upfront with the technology. Right now, our batteries don't have a lot of features. A lot of companies are adding like Bluetooth. Um, I'm trying to think, just some other weird features. Some people will add screens, that kind of stuff. We've kind of strayed away from doing that just so there wasn't another feature within the battery that could fail. We really want the battery to make it through that 11 years because that's what we believe in. That doesn't mean we don't have other ways of having Bluetooth on the battery. So a lot of Victron products like the Smart Shunts or BMVs or anything like that will work. So we can always set people up with the proper setup on there. Yeah, they're fantastic. The details that you can get from Victron and just how a whole system will work together is the best. And that's another thing is our support team, we send them to classes all the time. We're very lucky being in like Washington where there's classes all the time for all their dealers. So we'll send our support team there so they're all ready to set
So
people
do
up.
you sell the whole Victron product line?
Yep. So on the website, we have a very limited amount just due to stocking space, but we can always do special orders. That's no problem. This is a great one for full immersion. So IP67 with batteries and full immersion for 30 minutes of water for 3 feet. This is something just because IP rating on a battery is 67, I don't recommend using the battery after the fact. Um, with IP67, I think it's more helpful with splashing or humidity or anything like that. I always tell people if your battery is submerged, you have bigger problems going on. So if there, if that
Basement flooding problem.
yeah, if there's ever that kind of issue, I recommend not using it. I've had people use them after, it was fine, but just from a Dakota Lithium standpoint, don't use it. You can always contact us and we can see what we could do to help. Um, the next question, it was downsides to dual purpose. In my opinion, there are no downsides to going with dual purpose. They are a little bit more pricey than our deep cycle batteries, but I tend to sell our dual purpose line more than our deep cycle line because of the faster charge rates. You can discharge a lot further as well, which is super helpful.
We can discharge to a greater percentage.
Yep. And so that's kind of where with the starting, where it's super helpful.
Can you talk about what percentages that you?
I don't know about the exact percentage, but I can find out. I can ask our engineering team.
I mean, generally, a battery, what is, because one of the big wins over lead acid or lead chemistry is that lead chemistry batteries, the recommendation is usually discharged to 50%.
Oh, okay. Oh, with the complete discharge rate. Okay, yeah. So I was talking more for just like faster discharge, which is my bad. So yeah, right. But yeah, so for our batteries, you can drop them all the way down to 0. Yeah, that is,
They will recover.
yeah, no problem. They'll instantly start charging. That's no issue at all.
For the deep cycle.
For both, you could do down to 0, no problem. You see some people.
BMS turns it off before it gets too dangerous.
Yeah.
Go to 0.
So it will go, you'll watch it go like 13.6 and normally around 12, you're getting kind of near the end, but they'll go down to 11 volts. That's where our BMS, our low voltage, it cuts off for our BMS. So you can go pretty far down. And then if the BMS tripped, if you were in that case, you just throw the charger back on and it'll be okay. You're not damaging the batteries when the BMS trips. It's just a safety precaution.
Can't let it store, you don't want to store batteries at that total discharge rate.
Yeah, yeah, we recommend throwing a little bit of a charge on it for storage. That it varies. So that, like when I first started, that was one thing that people were kind of pushing. It's just like you don't want it fully charged, you don't want it fully discharged. People have kind of changed how they feel about that in the lithium world. I've heard fully charged is okay. That way you can kind of monitor it too to see if there is any ghost discharging during that period of time. Some people like to just go down to 20% for discharging as well, just for peace of mind. For yeah, yeah.
That's always the mystery to me. I have a battery, it's fully charged, I want to take it out and store it. I mean, what do a screwdriver across the post? Like, how do I get it down to, and then like sit there for half a day and turn all my stuff on, wait till it gets. I mean, is there a way to like just,
Just yeah,
inverter in there?
yeah.
Sounds like a lot of work.
Yeah. And see, yeah, that's the thing. It's like people I think just got tired of having maintenance. And that's kind of the point of a lithium battery is less maintenance. And they've kind of turned into, I think, with a lot of stuff online to be a little bit more problems than what they're like meant to be. It's supposed to be a pain-free battery. It's something you don't have to put water in, that kind of stuff. But
Well, if you can just leave it, and you got your solar panel and you just walk away for 2 months and it's fully charged that whole time,
yeah,
you're basically saying, don't worry about it.
yeah, yeah.
You can just turn off the solar panel.
Mhm.
But that means you gotta actually physically trip a switch, which is, a large maintenance. Yeah.
Yeah.
You
My cell phone has a lithium battery.
Mhm.
I've got this app that, is very adamant about anything over 80% is bad.
Yeah. And so I think it's a little bit different of a like technology for phones, because like I just got this phone because my old battery was dying all the time. And there's a setting to do just charge at 80%. And for me personally, it's more of just leaving it on the charger to kind of prevent damage to it. So I think it's just because these are a little bit different than like what we're using within our batteries themselves.
Are they not, the iron phosphate?
No, you can phone that and build it.
Mhm.
Yeah, you can put the fires out.
You could,
I guess we know that they
You
tend to
do,
be
that's
less
actually what you do. You put welding blows, right? Well.
You get to talk about the fire here in a minute, right?
no. It depends. So we have it. Yeah, no.
Well,
Like,
I went to the CNC seminar
mhm.
where they're teaching all this stuff. And we get to the fire demonstration. And the guy's like bringing out all this stuff that puts out different kinds of fires. And then he brings out one, he says, this one will put out lithium fires. But only the one that's caused by your phone.
Mhm.
And your boat is not going to get put out.
Yeah.
So,
See, guy said, have a shovel.
yeah,
See,
or
look,
let it
you're
burn
just
to the
gonna-
bottom.
or it's just
right?
gonna go
Yeah,
through.
right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Float, I guess.
Yeah.
So, the composition is different between a phone and this.
Hmm.
This LiFePo.
Yep.
And this something different. So, as far as for instance, the advice that guy gave me sounds like it's a little different than yours because he didn't say anything about shuttle. He said basically you just let it burn through the boat, try and put out the fire after it leaves. So. So,
That's what they call a submarine.
well, so my question is there still, and I took this like 3 years ago.
Yeah.
So that's still kind of the state of.
So now there are some fire extinguishers. I've seen them at shows that are specialized for lithium batteries, So those can help for sure. I know one of our founders has been in communication with one, because we would like to sell them ourselves, just as that safety thing. We don't want to put fear into people, but it is good to have just in general.
So it sounds like the technology is changing.
Yep, it's changing.
The piece of safety side is fusing. So what do you recommend? Because 300 amps is a high current. So a common pattern for 100 amp hour batteries, which are a kind of common kind of like unit for making a battery bank, is to put a 100 amp, is it MRBF fuse on each terminal. But obviously with a 300 amp hour battery with 300 amp hour, sorry, 300 amp discharge, you're not, or 1,000 amp discharge, you're not going to put a
1,000.
1C rated fuse on that. How do you kind of like reconcile the theoretical current capacity of that it can discharge at with safe fusing? What do you think about that?
So it just varies on the person's system that I'll be working on and trying to figure out the best discharging. Sometimes that is something I have to bring in engineers or the support team in on because it is a little over my head, just depending on the system. And so that's something I could definitely ask for that specific thing, for like fusing and everything.
Well, like on a car, I mean, the fuses are usually way smaller than the discharge capacity, are they not?
I think part of the story here is actually if you're going to use a very high current discharge rate to start a motor, you don't put a fuse between the battery and the motor. But you don't use that kind of battery in a domestic battery bank normally, and then you put appropriate, lower current discharge rate batteries in with fuses that are appropriate, so they're kind of the maximum you expect to get from each battery. I think maybe that's
So the starting battery thing would militate in favor of having a separate starting battery, because you need that enormous draw capacity and a fuse to match.
yes.
Whereas on your house bank, you would
That's
have interesting.
a bank of batteries, each with a fuse that's appropriate to the battery. Maybe 100 amp hour, 100 amp fuse, or 150 amp on a 100 amp hour battery.
Yeah.
But you could use a dual purpose battery, have the big fuse for the starter, and have a little fuse for the loads that don't need, that can't accept smaller loads.
Is the fuse protecting the battery or the device? I'm a little confused.
Normally it's considered to protect the wires, actually.
Ah.
The wires
So you don't
or
melt
the
them.
device, if the device is with now that's an interesting point about having different fuses on different circuits.
Right.
Yeah, I
That'd
think
be a good
that would be a
idea.
good way to
Yeah.
go. Or to make a dual purpose work.
Mhm.
Dual purpose mode.
Yep. People have done
Fuse
so.
or-
Perfect. The last one, because we kind of talked about tariffs, was downside to an internal BMS. Personally, I don't see a downside to an internal BMS, just because that way you don't have to deal with the settings and getting everything correct. Victron, like I said, is a great company. I love their products. When you purchase Victron products, you don't really have a direct line to someone that works at Victron. You're really relying on the person that you're uh, purchasing from and hoping that they know what they're talking about in a lot of cases. So an internal BMS kind of skips a lot of the process of being on the phone with the setup and everything. Because everybody's situation is a little bit different and people want to have their own settings. It's definitely something where you see a lot more people that are experimental, want to go with the external BMS route. One thing we recommend with our batteries is if you wanted to go that route, don't add an external BMS to our batteries because it already has an internal BMS and it kind of won't do anything just because our internal one will override. But
So I have a question about your BMS. So it's sort of like emerged in the market, and I'm sure you're aware of this in the last year or so, the concept of, I think it's LCP, that low charge protection, the idea of the BMS shutting down if the battery approaches a low charge state, not low voltage state, but a low charge state, and which is kind of a little similar, but it's not quite the same. And when used in parallel banks, it's unlikely that one battery will hit low charge
Mhm.
that state at the same time as any other. So
Exactly.
one battery shuts down, and then there's kind of a hysteresis thing. It won't come back on again for a period, and then others go down, and then
Yep.
eventually. So, do your batteries have LCP? Is that a feature of the? Because a lot of people didn't seem to know whether their batteries had this capability or not.
Yeah.
BMSs.
So,
It does seem to be a problem with per battery BMSs. The
Mhm.
idea that you protect each battery because you can't assume a bank is going to be hit the same state on each of the batteries simultaneously. They can do different things.
Mhm. So with our batteries, it doesn't have that problem. I don't know if it has that specific setting on the BMS, but we have something similar that happens, but not while the batteries are in parallel. While the batteries in parallel, most of the time there is no problem charging. What we see an issue is when the batteries are in series. So we sell a lot of batteries for 24 and 36, 48-volt setups. So you have to use a multi-bank charger. We have like single bank chargers. We recommend throwing a 12-volt charger on each battery once a month to make sure they're all even because they do discharge so unevenly, and you can get like a reverse polarity situation going on with the batteries.
You put diodes between them?
Um,
You're talking about the oscillating charging back and forth?
for the charging back and forth,
Well,
it's a
when the batteries are, what you said about reversing polarities.
Mhm. The way to prevent that, and like if the batteries are in series for 24, 36, or 48-volt, is just throwing a 12-volt charger on every once in a while. So like it depends on what someone wants to do. There's weird cases where people will put a solar controller, like line one up for each battery, and then just throw it on a solar charge for that period of time to kind of prevent it. Mhm.
Pass that on my electronic phone.
Yeah. It's a type of variation.
Yeah. Great, man.
Perfect.
Consumer questions?
We got one, but it sort of got addressed in the course of addressing the other questions.
Oh, okay.
Cool. Well, thank you very much. I think you've covered all the questions I thought, Guy probably won't show up if I ask all these
Oh,
questions.
no. No.
You got another one? How do you not wreck your batteries? How do you?
What do you do to keep them? just
Yeah,
on?
I just discovered that my torpedo battery doesn't seem to be doing very well.
Wow.
And I'm suspicious that I had connected the control arm to it, I just left it connected. And so what I'm fearful of is that there was a parasitic
You know?
current from the control arm that slowly drew the battery down, and it didn't have that low charge protection. And so maybe I'm buying a new battery.
That would suck.
So on the low charge thing, Patrick, why did the batteries have something that was similar to a low voltage cutoff or a low charge?
I haven't figured on the low voltage cutoff.
Yeah, yeah. I'm curious to see if it has that in particular with the BMSs. But right now each battery has a low voltage, like a low voltage cutoff.
I have batteries which have that.
Hmm.
They absolutely will just shut off.
Yeah.
At an appropriate. Actually, I'm sorry, I called it. Got that completely wrong. It's not LCP, it's FCP, full charge protection.
Oh, full charge protection.
You charge, and then they just charge. It's not because it's exceeded the voltage, but it's because it's determined that it's
Fully charged. Is it basing off one battery? Just like the lead?
shuts the battery.
Yeah.
The battery now won't discharge until its voltage drops. And so there's a kind of the same phenomena occur that I described, but it's the full state of charge, not the low state of charge. So I apologize for that.
What you were describing earlier about the low,
Sorry.
that was a wrong rabbit hole.
Yeah,
low
the
charge
rabbit hole was going down. It should have gone up.
That's entirely clear.
I'm curious, so the low voltage on the low voltage side, the battery, you say your batteries will shut off at a certain point, and then, you just recharge them and they automatically come back?
Yep.
Or you just send it back to the factory?
Nope. So if it trips at like all of our batteries, 12 volt, will be 11 volts. And then if you have a 24, 36, or 48, you just multiply 2, 3, or 4 by 11. But you just throw it back on the charger and we'll instantly start charging. So a perk of this over like AGM batteries is you would have to go over that little hump to get back up to 50% and then full recharge from that point. Lithium, it's just throwing the charger on and you're good to go.
Can I ask some more questions?
Mhm.
And so, just because I'm not a battery expert, but so like, when you're learning how to drive, your dad says, don't let that battery in the car go down more than 3 times. Stop. So, not the problem, right?
Yep.
So it goes down, you can let that thing shut off on its own.
Yep. And that's
Charge it back.
what we're seeing a lot of people like. I had someone ask for a battery for a Ferrari one time just for that reason, is because they're tired of like if a battery dies, like they don't want to have to go buy another one within a year. Yep. Yep. Motors, yeah. And so like that's a market we're looking into because it's kind of untapped for lithium right now with motorcycle and like power sports batteries and everything. There's a couple of companies, but it is a little tricky with motorcycle batteries.
Huh.
I switched to lithium, not for the weight, but for the use.
So let's just
Like
throw in
busy
on
mom, so my battery doesn't.
So
have
that-
to
Right.
Fill it up, fill it again, start it, go, let it drop, everything's off.
Got a cactus.
So it just keeps going. It's great.
So, when you charge a lithium battery, apart from the over voltage situation of the stator, is there a case where the battery will shut down? Like it's fully charged. So an AGM battery gets harder and harder and harder to put current into it. And there's, as I understand it, there's no damage done by continuing to charge a fully charged AGM battery. But is that true for lithium chemistry? Or are all batteries fundamentally going to turn off eventually when they get fully charged and you carry on? You run all day at full power. Is it eventually just going to turn off the? I mean, let's take your battery for example. Your low amp hour battery, because no one needs to start a small motor, a very large battery. But is it just going to shut off? The BMS just going to shut off eventually?
Yeah, so like just drawing, you're just saying from top to bottom, just like if there's a kind of like any sign of turn off, is that what? Or just like
If you just keep charging the battery, you keep shoving electrons at it, does it eventually just shut off?
Yes, that's the question.
That's the overcharge protection, right?
yeah, that would just be if you're not discharging and it's just charging.
A scenario for most of us here is we have a relatively small outboard motor that is running
10 hours a day.
Yeah.
You're
running for a long time.
I went up to specifically running for many, many hours.
Yeah.
And what became clear to me was, and it was became known to me afterwards, was a known problem with my batteries was that, they will shut down. The BMS shuts off the charging rate. And I noticed this because I happened to go plug in a cell phone, which triggered a voltage display to come on, which showed it was 17 volts at the time. So whether that means I blew the rectifier, or regulator, or whether I have a stator, I don't know. But I assumed it was blowing the regulator. But this problem occurred, and I could watch it occur, was if I allowed the battery to drain for a while, and not connecting it to the motor, then when I reconnected it, it would charge up and then it would stop taking current and the voltage would go up above 15, it'd go up to 17 or something. So I could see this pattern occurring again. So my question really is, well, for your batteries, is it a common pattern for small lithium batteries to basically shut down the charging capability at some point? or do they carry on accepting a charge, or in some way dissipate the current, keeping the voltage stable?
So it varies. So like for the smaller batteries, a lot of times people will use a charger that will just be a continuous charger. Unless it's a smart charger, then the battery will
I'm
turn.
referring to alternators.
So with
Charging
alternators,
voltage.
because that's continuously giving out voltage, the battery, as long as it doesn't spike over 15 volts, it won't turn off. It will continuously go. But so I think in your case, if the voltage spiked up to 17, that's where the BMS tripped it. And
It
then
was the reverse. The BMS turned the battery off, and then
it spiked up.
it spiked up. But the point was the BMS turned it off. It's a known problem with the battery that I had that had this protection mode. But I was wondering whether
Isn't that
other
all
lithium,
BMSs?
yeah, and I'm like, why isn't it that all BMSs don't? Where's this current going? You're holding this high voltage over the terminals of the battery. What's happening to that?
Well, the BMS just goes open circuit.
Well, no,
So there's
that's
no
turning
current.
off.
No
Yeah,
current
turning
will
off.
go in there.
Yeah.
Isn't,
No,
isn't
they-
that all
yeah.
BMSs?
It
that
goes
go-
into the sky and that's what makes lightning.
I know it.
It's not as simple as that.
I'll find out though,
Yeah.
because I haven't ran into that issue. Like we have a lot of sailors that use our batteries, especially for starting
Well,
like the
it can- Actually, it can't just be take a bass boat,
Mhm.
right? It's running, it's got massive alternator relative to our little guys. There's lots of charge coming out. The battery's full. What happens at that point when that battery is full? You've got one of your this guy here,
Mm.
and it's full,
Mm.
right? It's 100% charged now. And you've got this engine that's still running, it's pumping out, let's say it's 20 amps, 30 amps, or something, a much higher charge.
9/8 about 6
Where does it go
amp
at that point when this thing is full?
Mhm.
What's the,
And that's one thing I've never been told from the engineers.
okay.
Like, and that's something I'll find out. It's a great, like, yeah.
Corrosion happens on the leg. That's where it goes.
But, yeah, a regulator in a big outboard.
Yeah.
Doesn't
Are
it,
we talking about that?
reduce the, isn't there a wire that comes with the batteries to the regulator? Batteries fall, to the regulator, the regulator.
Yeah, so it's the alternator will still produce a charge. So the regulator's gotta be like opening up. But you've gotta watch when it opens up, so you're not hooking your diodes. Your diodes are making DC. They're getting hotter and hotter.
I think it's dessert fest.
If there's no load on the diodes, they'll.
See, Patrick?
Yeah.
Distracting. One last.
Yeah.
So in X-ray K discussion, there are a lot of people.
Yeah, most of them, but here's the thing, most of them.
And there's a lot of discussion about whether or not lithium batteries get to use like open dose. Yeah, because they want to weight and they have to run electronics.
He's got 4
But
bad.
everybody's completely freaked out about.
He uses for electronics.
Salt water.
Oh, yeah.
Splash. salt water in-
So a big part of that conversation came from like when the hurricanes came in and Tesla batteries were catching on fire. That's a different technology than lithium iron phosphate that we use, and there is no concern with that. A big part of our market is salt water. If it's if it's submerged in salt water, the worst thing is that's going to happen is it won't work. So with like the Tesla batteries that people were using in boats, it's a slightly different technology than lithium iron phosphate, and so they were catching on fire for yeah.
In a roll on, roll off boat.
Yeah.
Taking fire.
Mhm.
One car caught on fire, one car caught on fire.
Just yeah, same. It's crazy.
I know. Okay, the poor people on Zoom are listening to multiple conversations here.